This is the most critical point of the Dolphins franchise in a long, long time, especially for Finn fans. I mean, I've been waiting for decades, but there was some good times in the 80s and the 90s. 2000 kind of started the winnowing away. Teens of the 2000s, not so good. It's a little perk here early in 2020, and it died. Whatever the Dolphins organization does at this point, whatever head coach they hire, they have to be successful. Because if not, you're talking 3 years from now before the Dolphins get a chance to take another dip. And even if he's a successful head coach, puts together a successful team, it'll probably take him 1 or 2 years. So you're talking 5 years from now before the Dolphins could truly find success if they don't nail this head coach search. So in this podcast, I'm going to dig into the offensive coordinators. I could do a little mea culpa on my last podcast. I got to fix some things up. Go over some news, very interesting news that doesn't fit a lot of people's narratives, maybe. Maybe it does. Next podcast is going to be a film study on DJ Reader. And then after that, I want to get back to my Fins. But right now, I want to dig into this coaching search. And it's pretty hot and pretty wild. There's a lot of stuff going on. And whatever happens, wherever all these coaches go, whoever the Dolphins end up with, it's going to say a ton of stuff. And it's going to clear away a lot of people's beliefs. I might have to end up saying I'm wrong. Other people might have to end up saying they're wrong. Because when it's all said and done, all the sources and all their mysterious information that contradicts one way or the other, it's going to have a lot of action to either prove or disprove it by what is done, who is hired, and who is not. So there was this article here, little tweet, I guess you would call it, and it's BR Betting. And it basically says Jim Caldwell, 300 to Chicago, Brian Flores, 350 to Houston, Todd Bowles, 200 Minnesota, Leftwich, 200 to Jacksonville, Harbaugh, 200 to the Raiders, and Vance Joseph, 250 to Miami, and Dable, 100 to the New York Giants. Now, this is all just guesswork. But these guys, if their sources are wrong, they lose lots and lots of money. So what they got to say here, I have a little more belief in or credence in than I would say like some people, you know, because if a reporter gets it wrong or a source lies to them, they're not losing their job. They just move on to the next article. But these guys, they lose a lot of money. Their job's on the line. So Jim Caldwell, to me, was one of the best options for Miami. He worked with Miami. He's been to 2 Super Bowls with the Ravens and with the Colts. He's been a head coach twice. This guy has everything. I mean, he's like Brian Flores, but with the Zen master to him. You look at Caldwell, and he's got that ferocity, but he's got it under control. And he's got offensive experience, developing quarterbacks, experience with the yin yang. He's the best guy, really, next to, say, Jim Harbaugh or Doug Peterson. Those are the 3, really, for me. That would be the best option. But he's interviewed twice with Jacksonville. He's interviewed twice now with Chicago, and he's got some of the highest odds to go there. Why hasn't he been interviewed? Was it because Ross and Greer didn't want him, or was it because he didn't want to interview here? Now, there was sources that came out and said Caldwell left because he really wasn't sick. He just didn't like Flores. Sources. And I don't think that's legit. You don't fake sickness. The guy's not a punk. But if it was that case, then why hasn't he interviewed here? Why hasn't he come and said, this is at least a place I'm going to interview? He's totally dismissed it. I think that's interesting. I'm hoping he gets an interview here or some explanation why. Because that would go a long way to saying, you know what, Flores was at fault. But there's a lot of stuff coming out now. And by what decisions people make, we're going to see a lot of truth come forward. Now, Jim Harbaugh, big time want for Ross. They say 200 here to the Raiders, but he hasn't come out yet, so we don't even know that. But for me, even if he interviews here but gets a job someplace else, I'd be cool with it, both him and Caldwell. Because I would say, you know what, we're looking at you. You guys are a quality organization. We're considering it. But, we wanted to go someplace else. But no interview whatsoever, that's got to be a little bit of a red flag for me. And then they got Vance Joseph, $250 for Miami. That's a big concern. Vance Joseph, I got to do a little mea culpa. My last podcast, I said I liked Frazier a little better than Joseph because he had the head coaching experience. I forgot he had head coaching experience 2 years. That's why he left us. But 10 and 21, it's easily forgettable. But I really don't feel good about him coming. He could be great, don't get me wrong. But this to me seems like a last-ditch effort to get him. And I don't like that they're putting him to have the best odds to come here. So, again, who we interview, who wants to interview, and who we hire is going to say a lot. It's also going to say a lot about other teams. And this was some of the interesting tweets that were out there. Now, this is a tweet by Pat Leonard. Sources say members of the Giants organization have contacted multiple members of Miami Dolphins support staff, assistant coaches to due diligence on Brian Flores as the coaching search heats up. And they've received encouraging and glowing reviews in return. And some of the takes were, they just want him to go to the Giants so he can get Dable. And they're just saying that, okay, all right. I don't think that makes any sense. But then there was another follow-up tweet that just came out. And the same guy, different guy, Art Stapleton, here's the tweet. I asked John Mara why he reached out to Brian Flores last week before the Giants hired him as a GM, which became Joe Schoen. Mara said every one of the Giants GM finalists had Flores on the list. And he knew Flores had interviewed other places and wanted to make sure Flores knew the New York Giants were interested. But then he also went on to say, we're not interested in Deshaun Watson. And Flores is going to interview tomorrow. Now, if he doesn't get the job there, it's hard to say what is what. But for the owner to come out and say that every one of his GMs had Flores on the list, what does that say to you? That says to me, all these guys are in the know. They understand what's going on in the background. I mean, not fully, but they got to know way better than any of us, any of these beat reporters, any, ESPN. So every one of them had Flores on the list. Mara was desperate enough to reach out to him personally to make sure he knew he was interested. And he said, Deshaun Watson's not on a list. So all this talk about Flores is just trying to get Deshaun Watson, this could be blown up if he gets his Giants job. What does that say? Doesn't mean, again, that everything's wrong, that he was the nicest guy and all this other stuff. But it does say that some of these reports are a little bit fishy. But Flores is gone. We got to focus now on us. But I still think some people move on from Flores, move on from the past. We got to, and you are right. Every one of you have said that are right. But we've done this so many times. Remember, Jeff Ireland was fired because fans protested in front of Ross's office and flew, a plane with a sign on it. We have effect. We have potency. And this is why one of my next Fins podcasts is going to be examining the voices of the Dolphins community, looking over the strengths and some of the limitations, including my own, and I'm going to be very hard on my own, just to kind of put it out there because this is such a critical phase. Every voice, little guys like me, big guys like, the guys Big O and Dudley Do-Roll, those guys, they're important. They're critical. These fans, us fans, we need truth. And whatever that truth is, it's going to play a part in the voice of the fans, and the fans do have effect. So I'm going to do that next time. But we're in a critical phase. And if we forget to examine what the past was, then you know what? The next guy is going to come in and it's going to be some excuse. And then if Ross and say, we can't get rid of Ross, but if Greer's the problem, he'll be here again and we'll be doing the same thing. You know what I mean? But same token, if Flores is the bad guy and we're riding Greer and he's the good guy, we can inhibit his growth too. So truth is key. So the Dolphins are really in a bind. Sean Payton retired. It's 9 job openings. We know the hierarchy of coaches. And whoever goes where is going to say what they think of that situation. And the Miami Dolphins need to be a much more desirable destination than the Saints or even the Broncos. So how this plays out is going to say a lot. And there was another article, I can't get over here, but it was a tweet or something. It said Dan Quinn, who I'm not really a big fan of. I didn't really want him to come here, but he said he's unattainable. He's going to either the Vikes, I think, but it was definitely the Broncos. And that's not a good. We want veteran coaches. Where are the veteran coaches coming in here? Caldwell, we got to get him in here. Jim Harbaugh, we got to at least get an interview. Peterson, he's interviewed with the Jags, and I think he's interviewing with somebody. Why isn't he interviewing here? We need to get him in here. Ross needs a veteran coach, an offensive veteran coach. This is critical. This is going to say a lot. Now, part of my mea culpa, I'm going to get into this now, it's about Ross. When Flores was fired, I kind of was like, I knew it was a possibility, but I'd done the podcast and I was like, chilling out. I was looking at the comments. Somebody told me he got fired and it was like my whole world went spinning. It's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And I saw some tweets and stuff like about how he was flirting with Harbaugh, and I didn't watch the interview till like a day or two later. So in my mind, the flirting with Harbaugh happened before he fired Flores, but this is bad journalism on my part. This is something that I shouldn't have done. I should have checked it and researched it. It was in the same interview as he was getting fired. And my contention that coaches were looking at the Dolphins and seeing that he hadn't learned from the Harbaugh flirt the first time, this was wrong because the evidence was wrong. And Don had pointed that out. But I went back and watched the video, and I would like to admit I am wrong. But the sentiments were still contained in what Ross said. Ross had said, I love Jim, and this is our second time trying to get him or go around with him. Ha, 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 ha. Understand, even if he feels that way, the coaching fraternity felt like he stabbed Sparano in the back. What coach wants Ross to laugh about his first go around with Harbaugh when it was one of treachery? This is not making the Dolphins a popular place for premier coaches at any level. And for him to laugh about it, and that goes back to an article that he said here in 2013. Sparano, could never put it behind him. I don't think he was the right head coach for the Miami Dolphins. I didn't hire him. We're a much better organization today than then. This organization is functioning the best since Don Shula's days because I picked the head coach with Jeff Ireland, Ross said. People see this organization is really on the uptick. 6 months later, we have Bullygate. This is with Philbin. But again, my wife and I, she's hot-tempered. I'm a little hot-tempered. We have some arguments, this and that. And she has a way of like, she'll do something or sometimes I do it too, but she'll do something and like turn it on me. I'm like, honey, it's like if you stab me in the chest and my blood squirts on your nice white dress, you're going to say, how dare you get blood on my dress? And this is what Ross is doing here. He did everything the wrong way, the wrong protocol, stabbed Sparano in the back, then got mad at him for getting upset that he got stabbed in the back. And then he made an incorrect call saying they're the best since Don Shula. They were the best at the best point of their organization since Don Shula. 6 months later, they had Bullygate and Philbin. And then to laugh here, and to me, guys, all I want to see is some top-end veteran coaches come in here and interview. And that will dispel all my concerns, or a lot of them, about how they view Ross. But so far, no real veteran coaches. Dan Quinn, but he's already said, quote unquote, that it's unattainable. So I was wrong on that point. I'm not going to deny that, but the sentiment still holds, especially considering he says he loves Jim, when Jim is actually just like Flores. He was fired for the same very thing. He couldn't get along with the GM, had arguments, and he was too controlling, and he was a hardhead. But you love him. So I'm getting a little concerned, but there's plenty of time based on this hire and interviews. Things can be dispelled. So want to move forward to the offensive coordinators. We have options. And I prefer an offensive coach over a defensive coach. I would prefer a coach with head coaching experience even over an offensive coach, except for one guy. One guy is very intriguing, but still a little concerning. Now, Kellen Moore, player, 3 years as an OC. He's one of the guys, but he's like a second-tier guy. He's got interviews with Jags, Browns, Vikes. The QB run call, though, has got to sit in your mind. I mean, fans melted down over the Jags call by Flores. This is that call, like, in a magnitude of, 100. And he's the offensive coordinator for 3 years. So that really should have been out of his system. So I think this guy needs a little maturation. There's a sense that, again, maybe he's a pretty good offensive coordinator, but he's got one heck of a line. He's got talent on the receiving core. He's got a quarterback that's really good. It's easy to look good this way, especially with the offensive line. He's coming to Miami. He's got no offensive line. Can we get it? Maybe, maybe not. So I'm a little concerned. He's not really a hot topic for me. Mike McDaniel, guy's brilliant. And I like his offense in a lot of regards. I love a run-centric offense. Been begging for that forever. And that's super intriguing. He's worked with Sean McDermott, Kyle Shanahan, Matt LaFleur. These are good, really brilliant people to work with. But he's only been an offensive coordinator 1 year, and he's really a run coordinator. And again, his offensive line, which has got Trent Williams, one of the greatest ever, is there. And in order to call some of the calls that he calls, these exotic looks, these movement blocks, the zone stretch run, you need a great offensive line, a very good offensive line. It's much more difficult to get that kind of offensive line. And he's got an absolutely elite offensive line. They're going to have to rebuild this whole offensive line. Can they? Can they give him the tools to be successful? Can they give him time? Is he going to be a head coach? Does he have enough experience? I'm very intrigued. Of all the rolls of the dice, I hope it's him. He's the best roll of the dice for me. But I'm still curious. Now, there's another part I wanted to go over that I had missed. Part of my mea culpa. Alfredo Ortega. He comments once in a while on the site. We've talked back and forth. He had said he was like, a famous guy or something. I really didn't know. I'm not really hip. And he had said, rightly so, what do you mean there was no quality coaches coming into mind? Because I said that last time. I made a mistake. I said, I'm a writer. So you throw up on a page, you edit it, and you edit it, and you edit it, and you take out your monkey stuff. But when I do this voice thing here, I'm a monkey. I still say not what I want to say, or I'm not specific. If you go back to my, with Brian Flores, you got to keep the Ross effect in mind. What I had said was coaches of high caliber with a lot of gravitas have not come here since the Sperano incident. The Gailey was the first. This time I said quality. And he was right to say, but named off a bunch of coaches. There have been quality coaches here, but none of real gravitas since Gailey. And again, it goes back to my point. How come Jim Caldwell hasn't interviewed? How come Jim Harbaugh hasn't had Doug Peterson? Why aren't these gravitas, high-end coaches, veteran coaches interviewing. The only one was Dan Quinn, and now we're hearing it's unattainable. And I just want to see these guys come in because then it will dispel this concept that I have. So I'm wrong on that. I haven't really watched his site, the 3 yards per carry. A lot of people rave about it. And this offseason, I'm going to dig into it. It's just been a lot to do this with all my other things and my kids and everything. I spent the last 2 weeks watching all these shows and trying to catch up and bone up on them. I'm going to spend a lot of time on 3 yards per carry, catching up old and new stuff. It's just, I'm only 50, dude. I'm in pretty good shape. But, dude, I got a lot of miles on the skin, dude. I'm tired. This is a very tiring experience. So I apologize. I'm grateful that anybody pays attention to my stuff. But when somebody who's doing what I'm doing and they've done it at a much higher level, pays attention, that's awesome. And I want to reciprocate. I'm going to dig into your stuff and really spend time getting to know it like I have a bunch of these like TD's Fin Talks, Big O, Dudley Do Wrong, a bunch of shows. So I'm going to dig into you, brother. I appreciate it. I was wrong about that, but it was not my sentiment. If you go back and you look, check the coaches, none of them are really Gailey. Gailey, he helped kind of bring Elway up. He's the guy who was really leading the way of that zone stretch run with the cuts blocks and got Elway his Super Bowl. Then he went to the Georgia Tech and he came back and he brought fun ball, all this like wild spread option stuff to the NFL. If he was one of the first to do it. He's been a head coach. This guy, he was the only Dallas coach to go to the playoffs every year. He was Shane Gailey was something else. He was able to get us the best scoring, the most amount of points scored since 2000. We were fourth in the league in 2020. This guy was high end. And no one, Mike Sherman, come on, he was like burnt out when he came out to us. He was coming out OC coordinator, talented, but none of the other guys, Gase, Philbin, Vance, Josh Boyer, Coyle, Zach Taylor. Zach Taylor's good now, but all these guys were just finding their way. They weren't big-time coaches. Gailey was the first big-time coach. So I'm wrong, and I apologize. I'll get to that. I'll fix that up. So on to the next. Got Mike McDaniel. Thomas Brown's another guy we've been talking about. Rams associate head coach for 2 years. RB coach, 9 years in college. If we end up with him, that's not good. It could be great, but odds are not, this is, just a flyer type guy. Then is Dable. I don't like Dable. Could be totally wrong. But I studied him all year with the Bills. He loves fun ball, shies away from the run. He's a little inconsistent, a little erratic, a little skittish as a play caller. And when you look at it, he had Allen and all that talent. And he still, it just wasn't. You can check my last podcast to show you where he fails. And I feel like there's like elements of Gase in his nature. Not to say he's like Gase, he's way better. But I'm a little concerned about Dable. I'm a little concerned. I don't really feel him, So much talent. And I'm going to do some stat work on him that I did for the Bills. I'm going to show the Fin fans how just really inconsistent he is. I don't want him to be a Dolphin coach. I hope he goes to the Giants. I hope Flores is the bad guy and nobody hires him and he goes to the Giants because I just don't really feel it. But it will be a big deal if he doesn't come here and goes someplace else because he knows he has connections here. He has connections with Greer. So it's going to say a lot one way or the other, but I'm really concerned. But for me, Jim Caldwell, Doug Peterson, Jim Harbaugh, these are the guys. But we're not getting those calls. And if we get them, it's going to be great. If we get even Dable, even though I don't like him, it still will feel good because he's a top-end prospect. But for me, other prospects, veteran prospects, guys with gravitas, if we can get them in here just for interviews, that's going to go such a long way. And for those who don't believe in Flores, who think he was the bad guy, if he gets hired by the Giants and they don't go for Watson, what is that going to say? So everything's in the air right now. Sources are saying a lot, but some of the action is starting to vindicate some people and put some things into question, but it's not sealed yet. I got to say, I'm sorry. I hope Flores was the bad guy and Grier was the good guy and Ross the good guy. But this coaching search is going to say what people really think of the Dolphins' destination. It's going to say what they think of Brian Flores. Right now, I'm a little concerned. Dan Quinn, even though I didn't want him, he was a vet. So here we are. It's coming down to the wire. It's going to be a big moment for fans. I hope I'm wrong. I hope a lot of fans who believe in Grier and Ross, they're right. But we'll see. This is Curtis saying thank you for staying to the end. Please like, comment, subscribe. Comments mean the most. I really appreciate comments. I just found a way to where I can find all the comments that I missed. And I've missed a lot of comments. I didn't know there was a spot on the YouTube page or whatever. I'm a bit of a monkey in that regard. I'm trying to figure it out, so I'm going to get to those. Subscribes and likes help us with the Google overlords. Keeps us in business. Really enjoy this. Want to stay in business. So subscribe and like to help us keep going. That is Curtis saying, go Fins. We need to get the right coach. We need to get the right coach, Fins. We need to get the right coach. See you next time. Start building your own online sports book today by getting signed up with aceperhead.com service that'll allow you to book action on sports from all around the world.